Hi, this is Bob Roth, Managing Partner and Co-Founder of Cypress Home Care Solutions. Since 1994, we have been providing in-home supportive care services for our older adult population right here in Phoenix, Arizona. Since 2014, we've been bringing you a show on Money Radio called Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. In case you miss our show that airs every Friday at noon, you can catch it right here on our podcast called Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. So when you get a chance, listen in and enjoy the show.
The views expressed on the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Money Radio staff, management, or advertisers, and do not represent an offer to buy or sell any securities. Some interviews heard on this program may be sponsored by the participants.
It's time for Health Futures with Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth. This is Arizona's only show dedicated to providing you with expert advice on how to live a longer, healthier, and happier life. To learn more, call 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Bob Roth.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and it must be Friday, and indeed it is. We're coming at you live from the Scottsdale Air Park Money Radio Studios, 1510 AM, 105.3 FM, the World Wide Web, moneyradio1510.com, and we are coming via podcasts. You can download us off any of the podcasting apps that are out there. Please, if you will, when you do take down our podcast, please like us, review us, and recommend us. I would really appreciate that. So if this is the first time you're tuning into our show is about how our older adult population can live a healthier, happier life. It's not by listening to me, it's by listening to these extraordinary guests that I get to come to the show, and today is no different. This is a longtime friend. I'll never say an old friend, a longtime friend. Aaron Marcum, I'm getting him here to the studio. We're using technology to do it, so I can actually see him. He's calling in. But Aaron is a longtime friend, a great ally to people in the home care space, and I've been dying to get this guy on, and I finally got him on. Aaron Marcum, welcome to Health Futures.
So good to be here, Bob. Thank you so much. And yeah, we go back quite a ways, so I appreciate this. We finally made this happen.
Well, we finally did, and you know, it's interesting. I could sit here and probably go through your LinkedIn and talk about your career. But I would really like it if you would do the same for me and have it from your voice. You know, you and I entered the space at about the same time. I got involved in 2003, and the family started the business in 1994. And I believe, if my memory serves me correct, you started in it about 2002. So if you would...
You're spot on.
Yeah, if you would, technology really helps. I saw your LinkedIn, so but I do want you to really take us through your background. I know that you live up in Rexburg. I don't know if you're from there, but give us a little bit about your background. And by the way, I mean, this guy has a stunning family. I think you have enough to do 3-on-3 basketball, right? You got three girls, 3 boys.
3 girls, 3 boys, and a beautiful daughter-in-law as well.
Yeah.
So.
Well, congratulations, and they are all. You have a beautiful family. You really do. And please,
I appreciate that.
Indulge me and let me know, and my listeners know a little bit about you and a little bit about your background.
Yeah. So I grew up actually in Las Vegas.
All right.
That's where I graduated, but my senior year of high school, my family moved to Idaho, and so I kind of look at Idaho as my home. But yeah, 2002. I started my first home care company about 5 years out of college. I graduated in 1996.
And what made you start a home care company? I want to really understand that.
Yeah. You know, in college, my wife, then my fiance, was in charge of what was called the Elder Hostel program, right, where healthy seniors would come in, and she was responsible for entertaining them, taking them places, and I was the designated driver often to those little excursions. And I just connected with them. My wife's got a beautiful voice, and she would volunteer at senior center. So it was really my wife got me into it. She graduated with her gerontology certificate, And I just thought when I graduated, I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I wanted to serve seniors. And I knew that right out of college. And at the time, I thought I was going to open up hearing aids or something like that. And about 4 or 5 years after graduation, I came across an article in Entrepreneur magazine about home care. And that's what got my interest. And I had, this is the wave, this is the future.
I love
Clear
it.
back in 2002 and or 2001, I found that, and then 2002, I took the leap, started my own independent home care company in Salt Lake City, Utah, and then, you know, it's been a fun ride since. You know, about 7-8 years into that, I got the idea, maybe a little bit sooner than that, I got the idea of measuring satisfaction, data analytics for the home care industry, because I was frustrated. You know, there wasn't enough data, I felt, in that space, and measuring performance and really understanding how the care was being delivered. So I started my second company while I still had my home care company, Home Care Pulse. That was the name at the time, and we launched that in 2008. And then, as you know, Home Care Pulse is we built quite a brand.
Oh, you did.
In the
And by the way,
space.
just so our listeners know, we met like in 2008, 2009 when you were just getting that started.
Yeah.
And I just want to give this little, tidbit that I think what really connected you and I together is that in home care, we have no data. We have no information. And for our listeners to really understand that, most of our partners, people that are in the healthcare continuum, have all kinds of great data. And they get many of them get the data from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. They get that from their annual their annual reports. But we have nothing in home care. And I came from the consumer product goods space, where we had Nielsen data, we had IRI data, we had Scantrack data, we had McKinsey that was doing all kinds of reports for us. Back then it was Arthur Andersen. So we had a lot of data we could get our arms around. That was probably the single reason why I was like leaning in when I first met you. Was like, wait a second.
Yeah.
I've been doing this now for 4 years and there is no data source and you're creating this. So please continue on. I mean, that was my attraction to you. I was like, whoa, this is cool. I need somebody that can create the data.
Yeah, it was hard at first. It's like pushing a string, because at the time the industry also didn't have a full vision of what data could do, right? And that seems so crazy, right? Is that now we look at data and it drives our businesses and our success. And so that took a while. I mean, a lot of people looked at Home Care Pulse as an overnight success 10 years later, but it wasn't. It was a hard road the first 3-4 years. But once we turned those corners, the impact was pretty incredible. And the change, and we created Best of Home Care Awards, which rewarded quality care. Our satisfaction surveys were exceptional. And so just changed a lot of the even the conversations around home care and the quality of it. So super proud of that, and I later exited that company. That's a long story in and of itself. Went back and got my master's degree in applied positive psychology from UPenn, because one of the challenges in our industry is retention, right? Retaining good quality care professionals. And I wanted to know more about the science of well-being and what really is the foundation. What are the foundational concepts, science-backed concepts that really help people stay in the workplace? And my focus was home care. And so I was able to go to that top program, and it was a life-changing program for me personally. And then I continued to, I invested in another home care business, and I've just been in, continued in home care, mostly in coaching side of things. And I continue to coach home care providers to not only provide the best care possible, but to really create positive workplace cultures that retain their top talent. So, and that's where I am where I'm today. I wrote a best-selling book actually last year that I'm super proud of.
Yeah, you did.
Called Entre Thrive, and it's really was focused on the entrepreneur and how entrepreneurs can live a better life. But there's a lot of home care stories in there, because that's obviously been my
Well,
background.
lot of home
over the
care
years.
stories and a lot of entrepreneurial stories. And,
Yeah.
I feel privileged. I got an early release of that book, and you wrote me something really
Mm-hmm.
special in that foreword, and I'll always cherish that. I thought I might read it, but we'll see. Maybe I won't. We'll see. We'll keep our listeners listening because I might read that because it was really special to me because
Well,
I
thank
know
you.
it came from the
Yeah.
heart. And, Aaron, I
Yeah.
told you that we're 4 segments. You hear the music in the background. We're down 1, but I want to learn a little bit more in terms of what you're doing today, because what you're doing today is you're really helping us change the shape and reimagine home care. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. I got Aaron Marcum here with me in the studio. Stick around, down 1. We got 3 more to go. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. And if you're just tuning in, we're in our second segment here. I've got Aaron Marcum here with me in the studio. We had a great first segment. If you missed that, go up to cypresshomecare.com. Click on the media button right below its radio show. You'll catch this one and many, many more. So we left off in the first segment really learning a lot about Aaron and his background. And I think it's really important for us to really put this in the forefront of our discussions that we're going to talk about. And what are we going to talk about? I don't know, but we'll figure it out because you and I have worked together for so many years. So, I want you to complete, what you have done because you went to University of Penn and, I want you to pick up on that. And, behaviors were one of the things that you were looking to do and really, really be able to help more positive behaviors. And we need a lot of that, not only just in home care, we need it in our country and we need it in our world. But at the same time, you did talk about caregivers. And, I think a lot of people don't really realize how important caregivers are to the work that not only we do as home care agencies, but as we receive as a society. I mean, when I think about caregivers, I think about, caregivers and teachers are probably the most underpaid positions here in our country and probably the most important ones, right? And teachers, teachers have a voice. I mean, they can go on strike and they can march down to our state capitol, and that did happen about 4 years ago, and there were 50,000 of them that did that. But caregivers can't because caregivers are too busy caring for people that really need them. They can't go on strike. So, please pick up a little bit on your background, and then we'll have some thoughtful conversations about care in the home and just aging services in general.
Yeah. Yeah. So positive psychology, a lot of people think it's like the science of happiness, and it's actually really not. It's really the science behind why some people thrive and why some people don't. How do we get more people to thrive? And you can go into this program. I studied under the famous psychologist Martin Seligman, who is the father of positive psychology. And positive psychology is one of the most researched components of psychology, especially in the last 2 decades, like the most researched, because we want to get more proactive with life satisfaction, right, and well-being, and what Aristotle called eudaimonia, and just the good life. And these care professionals, it's hard, right? It's so difficult that it's emotionally charged, right? They're dealing with families, they're dealing with
100%.
clients. It can get kind of ornery sometimes, right? They get a combative, someone with dementia, or just all kinds of different things. And how do you help them thrive in that kind of environment? And so we've created this model based upon positive psychology. So I went to that program, studied under Martin, and then did my capstone, and really with the goal of like, how do we help these care professionals? And so we've created this model called the Keeping Culture model, and part of that model is there's several components to it, but the one that I really love the most, based upon one of the most researched parts of psychology, is the self-determination theory. Like, what creates a self-determined workforce, in a sense? And so we created our own model called the Arc of Growth, and it's an acronym, ARCC, stands for autonomy, relationships, capability, and confidence. And research has shown that if we can provide even care professionals some autonomy in their work, right? We give them the bumper rails or whatever, but within like a care plan or whatever it might be, is that we want our care professionals to have some autonomy with their care and how they, some of the creativity happens in the autonomy, to be able to help a client with dementia in creative ways, right? And be able to do that and provide that training. And then relationships in the workplace, right? We know that the number one contributor to well-being are our relationships. And so how do we connect the care professionals with each other, with the team, making them feel part of the team, especially in the first 90 days is key. And there's a lot that goes into that. But that capability, that's that training. That's helping them understand how to communicate with someone with dementia. A lot of home care companies, or some home care companies, say they specialize in dementia, and typically what they're saying, and I don't want to knock some of them, but they're saying that they take care of people with dementia. And that's different from someone who actually has a dementia training type program, right? You and I both know this. There's a difference. And so what capabilities are we investing in, right, with these care professionals? And there are some exceptional programs out there, home care companies that are doing it. Cypress, I know, being one, is that they're investing in that capability. And then the outcome, when you have a more confident care professional, that's the last part of that arc of growth, is that they will go about their work in ways that will just elevate everyone, right? Elevate their clients, elevate themselves. It creates a real magical environment for them, in a sense, that they're getting rewards from on a consistent basis. And so it's a pretty cool model that we've kind of created. We coach home care providers on how to build that in far more detail than what I'm sharing today, but it's something that we see a real big impact when they're really leaning in on that.
For our listeners, it's really difficult as a home care agency, like ours and like the one Aaron used to have, and others that he's worked with and others that, he's consulting with. When you have hundreds of caregivers, how do you connect with them? And, this is one of the struggles I have every single day. I mean, they don't work inside of our building. And, when you tell people that you're in the senior service business or you're in the home care business, the first thing they think about, how many homes do you have? They think of it as a facility, and it's like, no. And this is the struggle that you and I have every day, because people don't even realize home care is one of those options that people can consider in terms of getting care for their loved ones, right? They think that home health and home care are the same, and they think once their loved one has, gotten to the point where they can't remain at home by themselves anymore, that means they have to go into assisted living, and that's not true. I mean, you can get care in the home. And I say this all the time. I mean, thank you, Home Instead. Thank you, Visiting Angels. Thank you, Bright Star. Thank you, all the franchisors that are running these commercials, because they're validating the fact that care in the home does exist. And we have an uphill battle. You talk about that string. We're still pushing that string up that hill to try to get people to really understand that. But I want our listeners to understand that, as an agency owner and we hire these folks, they don't work in our building, and we only get a chance to see them when one of our care supervisors sees them really in action, or we have a caregiver appreciation day, which we have had, but, we might get, a third of the caregiving staff to come in for all the reasons I mentioned before. They can't leave the people that they're caring for. They can't say, oh, I'm going to, a meeting over at Cypress, or I'm going to a holiday party. No, you can't do that. So we do invite them to bring their loved ones, or in this case, their care recipients with them, but that doesn't always happen. So I love what you're doing, because we need to figure out how we establish culture, how do we establish connection, how do we make them feel like they are appreciated. And there are lots of ways that people are trying to do it, but I think that positive psychology is such a important piece. And just, just the feedback that they get, the fact that, some of us take the time to call our caregivers on their birthday and just, or just randomly call them and thank them for the work that they do. So I would love for you to expand a little bit on that. And I said a lot more than I probably really wanted to, because this is my show, but it's usually about my guests, and it really is about you.
Well, we have such a similar background in that way. But, when I think of one word in this case, it's intentionality, right? Is that we can't just go ad hoc when it comes to our culture within a home care agency. Is that it's all about intentionality, and it can't just be dependent on the owner to do that, right? The owner is leading from the top down, but it's empowering that office team. I think if we really truly understood the impact the office team has on our retention, we would lean even more into some of these intentional practices of reaching out. I love the birthday, on their birthdays, but even going beyond that is using technology, understanding, when they're calling in, what are they saying? What are the themes that are coming up? Their struggles, having more than one in-service, or when I say in-service, like training a month so that they can attend more often. It's going to be the little text messages, and even using technology to be able to help push some of those things out. It's highlighting them. It's having, core value shout outs on a regular basis, right? And helping them understand what behaviors you're looking for. If we're recognizing specifically on core values and being detailed as to what the behavior was that they did to get that recognition, they're going to do more and more of that, right? And so there's obviously a lot to that, but it's that intentionality is so key.
Well, you and I have a mutual friend in Stephen Tweed, and he always says, whatever gets rewarded gets repeated, and the reward doesn't have to be something tangible. It can be an intangible, like thank you, you're appreciated. We couldn't do it without you. Well, you hear a little music taking us out. We got the Grateful Dead, I think it is, taking us out here at halftime. Halftime here at Health Futures. We got Aaron Marcum here in the house. Stick around. We got 2 more segments. We'll be right back.
I hope you're enjoying the show. This is your host, Bob Roth, managing partner and co-founder of Cypress Home Care Solutions. If you have any questions about the topics that are discussed during the show, visit us online at cypresshomecare.com or give us a call at 602-264-8009. We are entering now the second half of our show, so stay tuned for more helpful information to assist you with your aging loved ones.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and if you're just tuning in, we're in our second half here. And I've got Aaron Marcum here in the studio via technology, and we have talked about a lot of different things. We spent the very first segment and part of the second segment really teeing up Aaron because of his background and the fact that he has worked in various capacities in the aging service world. It was really important to kind of tee this up. And then, for his master's, is that what you got from, or doctor? What'd you get from? Your master's that you got from Penn?
Master's of Applied Positive Psychology.
Applied Positive Psychology, and how he's applied that into the home care space, especially with caregivers, is what we covered in the second segment. And here we are in the third segment. We are talking about care in the home. We're talking about a pioneer. You are a legend in our industry because you really helped us bring data. Bring what we call KPIs to our space, because if you think about it, when you were running your own home care company, I think it was called Arbor, right? Arbor Home Care.
Yeah. Nice.
When you were running Arbor, you were literally running in the blind. I mean, seriously, we did not have data, and it was really hard to be able to have these key key, performance indicators and being able to, basically sail our ship, right? If we saw wind coming a certain way, we wanted to gravitate to the wind, but we couldn't find that headwind without that data. Tailwind, not headwind, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So,
It feels pretty good that we were able to make that kind of impact and bringing that data to the forefront. And since then, to see it go beyond that, right, with a lot of the technology and the software providers now providing such rich data into the industry is pretty amazing. We're so far ahead of now. I mean, we still have some catch up to do, I think. I don't think we're quite there yet.
We do. Yeah. And, you talk about the software providers, but they're only providing the data that we have. You were able to coalesce an industry, and you were able to get the Home Care Association of America to get behind what you were doing. And not only get behind what you were doing, but enable them to really get the word out to everybody, because the only way you could benchmark is get participation. And getting their endorsement was huge.
That was huge. Yeah, huge. And then we were able to get 11 integrations with all these software providers, and we were pulling the data from them into, that which even enhanced it even more. And these were, as you know, they're very competitive of each other. And so to get them to play nice and play together was pretty amazing. I think that that's one of my most proudest moments, when we were able to coalesce all that data, even beyond what we were doing from surveys and different things. Was pretty amazing, pretty cool.
It was. So here we are talking about positive psychology, and we're talking about caregivers, and I really want to learn more about what you're doing now, because now you're involved in doing this Breakaway 365, and I love the metaphor. I mean, listen, you have found that the secret to aging is being very active, and I think many of us have.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not active, you're not growing, you're decaying, and you understand that better than anybody else. And for you, it's been about a bike, and it's been about a passion of yours. And I don't want to steal any of the thunder of your book, and that you have published, which is an amazing book. And in the fourth segment, I'll give you a chance to promote that a little bit, but really talking about how your experience with something personal and something that you did for your own physical health, but also your mental health. When you're out there on the bike, you're alone on the trails, and you're alone with nature.
My favorite meditation.
Yeah. So I would love for you to talk about what that bike meant to you, and how you applied that to what we do every single day. And
I mean, going back about 2014, 2015, we were in the middle of Home Care Pulse was growing by then. We were starting to really see some traction. And so professionally, I was really starting to thrive, but personally, I was struggling. My health was not good. I was about 30 pounds overweight. It was not good. And so 2016, I found the world of cycling. And it transformed my health. I mean, literally transformed my health. So I bought my bike. I'm kind of a crazy entrepreneur. Bought my bike on the very same day I signed up for a 200-mile bike race 5 months later that was going to take place.
And it wasn't it wasn't an electric bike. I just want to go on no electric bikes, because there's so many people that are out there with electric bikes. Road bike. You're using your legs.
Road bike. Using my legs, and I had 5 months to train for this crazy. It's from Logan, Utah to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and that was my, I finished it that first year, and I've finished it 3 times since then, so 4 total times finishing that race. And one of the metaphors in cycling, there's 2 wonderful metaphors that I really have loved and translate into not just our industry, but in business in general and in life. One is the concept of drafting, right? Is that when you get behind someone else's wheel on a road bike, you're saving at least a third of your energy. They're protecting you from the wind, they're protecting you from a lot of things, and you're just drafting. And it's just like when you get behind a semi, right? Is you save on gas in scenario.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing with cycling. And so when you're drafting, you're saving a ton of energy. But when you break away as a group, and that term breakaway, they use it in the Tour de France. They use it, which I had the privilege of actually going to this summer.
I think there was a movie, Breakaway, with Dennis Quaid, right?
Yeah.
That was like 40 years ago. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, old movie.
Yeah.
And I saw this firsthand. I mean, I went out to France this summer with a few entrepreneur buddies of mine, and we did some of the rides of the mountain rides, Tour de France. But they have these breakaways. But you can't break away if it's just by yourself. You're going to fall back in the pack, sometimes behind the pack. So the best breakaways are when you're with the team and you're taking turns drafting from off of each other. And when you have a really strong team, you have a much better chance of winning that stage, or that race. And that's our coaching program, Breakaway 365, is kind of builds on that concept for home care providers to say, hey, we will help you break away from the pack, and we're your team. We're going to help you build a better, not just their only team, because what we really want to help them do is build a home care business that thrives, right? And that people take turns in the lead, And so as an owner, if you're in the lead all the time, that's burnout. That was me in 2014, 2015 with Home Care Pulse, is that burnout isn't usually due to the amount of hours we work. That does contribute. It's more due to the lack of purpose, right? Or doing things that drain our energy. And so we're really trying to help home care providers through our coaching and through some other programs that we do to help them, first and foremost, build a team that can get in front sometimes and help draft and lead and move the company forward. That's when we truly break away. And you can use that analogy in life, in our health. Seniors, can't break away by themselves. Typically,
Right.
They need a team. They need a team home care provider. They need, obviously, doctors. The whole continuum of care is really a breakaway team.
And
right?
I've read your book, and you and I have gotten a chance to know one another, and it's lonely at the top, man. It really is. To be the entrepreneur and making those decisions is really, really hard. And you can't help but get stressed out by it. And you described 14 and 15. You hear the music, but I want you to answer this real quick. 14 and 15. How many employees did you have back then?
I had probably at least 100, 80 to 100.
Yeah. And that in it alone, having that many employees, making payroll, being accountable to them, that's hard stuff. Home care is hard. It really is. I tell that people all the time. You want to get into home care, you better be ready to work, because it is hard. Well, you hear the music. We're down 3 segments. We got one more to go. And I want to talk about a little bit in the 4th segment about what you're doing to help home care companies. And then I really want to get a sense from you as where you see the future going. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. Aaron Marcum's in the house. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and if you're just tuning in, I've got Aaron Marcum here in the studio with me. If you missed the first 3 segments, go up to our website at cypresshomecare.com. Click on the media button right below its radio show. You'll catch this one and many, many more. So we've talked about a lot, Aaron, and certainly we've talked about the positive psychology, which is so important. It really is. And we've talked about how important caregivers are to our agencies, but not only just our agencies, they're important to our community at large. And, with our aging demographics that we know that the 65-year-old population is doubling in 25 years. 85-year-old population is going to nearly quadruple. It's going to crush our long-term care support system in so many different ways. And, we could spend a whole show talking about how we are not ready for this. But at the same time, there are things that we can do to help us prepare. And I love what you're doing to help prepare home care agencies with this. And you talked a little bit about, how you're teaching them to really understand the metrics that come from the data that they get, but also more importantly, to really understand the psychology of our caregivers and really maintaining that positivity, because it's hard. I mean, caregiving's not easy. And like I said, when we broke, home care is really hard because you know what? Look, people are dealing with all kinds of stressors. This is the end of life for a lot of them, but more importantly, not so much end of life. We get to be a part of shaping their final chapter of their lives. And if we do it in a positive way, we can make that experience the best it can be.
Yeah. Yeah, so much of it is like I think we overthink sometimes, though, like workplace cultures and even working with those that we care for, is we don't have to have these complicated culture processes and engagement necessarily. It can be as simple as just the tradition of when you get on the phone with a care professional, you're asking them how they're doing and you're checking in with them first, right? And you're connecting to them at a real level. If we go right into the issue or the client issue or the care, it feels very transactional. And so when we are transactional in our relationships in general, right, is that they're not depth. There's no depth to those relationships. And so to create more depth, we've got to be really, like, again, I go back to the word intentional and teaching your office team members and those who are connecting with both care professionals and family members, clients.
100%.
The people they're caring for is be human first, right? And connect with them, get to know them.
100%. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I talk about this all the time, the difference being transactional versus relational. And, typically I'll ask any one of my team members, whether it be a care service coordinator, whether it be a scheduler, or it could be our HR manager, did you form a relationship? And, it's finding that commonality, right? It could be family. It could be vacation spots. It could be baseball teams. It could be a bike riding. Find something common and just make sure you make note of that. And then when you have these encounters, these relational encounters, you can talk about that. It could be about someone's grandchildren, or a birthday. All of those things are so important. And, with the advent of technology, it should never replace those relationships. It should make it a little bit easier. Because as you talked about these enterprise software solutions, these EMRs that we use, we can put all kinds of information in those profiles. And nowadays, you and I will talk offline how we're doing a lot of these encounters. We're recording them. We're asking for permission.
And I love that.
We're asking for permission to record them, but we're recording them. And that way we can be more relational and not worrying about trying to write things down or trying to remember what people say. We can be present and there in person.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference.
And what's cool about that with AI, it's not just recording them, it's transcribing it, right? To where it's just taking so much of that. It does allow a lot more intentional.
And summarizing, because you could have a transcript that could be 16 pages, but then you could pull it out a summary that it could be one page, which is really cool. So
I love what you guys are doing with that.
We have a couple minutes here, and I know we don't have a crystal ball, but I'm going to tell you just flat out, full stop. I'm so glad that Aaron Marcum's back because don't get me wrong, you weren't doing work that wasn't unrelated to us because you were an EOS implementer, and we won't go into details about what you were doing there. But you're back helping home care companies, and whether you know it or not, you were helping home care companies with Home Care Pulse. And you are helping home care companies now. And I love what you're doing. And, I would love to hear from you. Where do you see us going? Where does Aaron Marcum and Breakaway 365, where are you guys going? And where do you see home care going? Because you've been at this as long as I have, about a year longer than me. But where do you see where do you see this going? We got just a couple minutes here.
Yeah, really quick. Obviously, the home care is not going away. Like it's going to just amplify. 2033, that's they say that's the big precipice of baby boomers and the demand. I think it's even obviously well beyond that. But last year, and this is just one, like when you think about technology, last year I went to an AI conference, and one of the exhibits there, they had a robot. She had lips. She had tried to make her skin look real. I think they've come, even since then, they've made it look even more real. And I had a 45-minute conversation with this robot about biking, about some of my interests. It actually knew about me because I had taken a survey before the conference. And when you think about dementia care, home care, at some point, will we see, and this is a question, but also I think that we all probably know the answer, will we see a time in the near 5 to 10 years from now where we see robots in the home who can have a 4-hour conversation with someone with Alzheimer's dementia that humans aren't capable of having, right? And so that's a really interesting, when we really think about it. Now, tactically, they're a way off. They still, for a robot still to put glasses on somebody, for example, they're going to poke someone's eye out, right?
Or do a lift.
Verbally, or do a lift, right? Yeah. The verbally, I was frankly, Bob, I was blown away. I could not believe this conversation I was having and how much they knew about even like me, and they'd gone to my LinkedIn profile while I was there talking to the robot. And so it's a really interesting concept to think about where we could go. Now, this company, one of their very first frontiers is home care.
Wow.
But they don't want to do it themselves. They want to work with home care providers.
Got it. Connect them with me. I'd love to.
I think both of us, both you and I, need to have a call with them.
We definitely do.
They've reached out since, yeah.
So we've got about 45 seconds, and I always like to leave it to our guests. Is there a question I haven't asked, or is there a lasting thought you want to give our listeners? And I love doing this with you, and I turn the mic over to you.
I appreciate it. I love what our care professionals are doing. These people are so special, and helping home care providers learn how to give them purpose. We have this thing we do with them called helping them get their guiding truths. And we help them do that at the care professional level, and we use AI to do it. It's pretty amazing.
That's really cool.
And, they answer questions, and they put together their own personal purpose statement for these care professionals. And I think the more we invest in them, the better we will get at taking care of our aging population. It's the cycle of life there. So,
sage advice. Friend, so good to see you. And I can't wait to see you in a couple of weeks. We're going to see each other in Dallas at the Home Care Association of America conference. If anybody's listening to this and you're a home care agency and you're not going to this conference, it's October 19th to the 21st. You should be going to Dallas and visiting with a guy like Aaron Marcum. He's leading a session. I think you're one of our keynotes. It's been great having you, Aaron. Now, I got to say goodbye. You've been listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. We'll be back next Friday.
There's no place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call Cypress Home Care Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit cypresshomecare.com. Be sure to join Health Futures with Bob Roth every Friday at noon, right here on Money Radio 1510 and 105.3 FM.